I'm Evelyn Wilson, 62 years old, and 3 years ago, I lost my husband Frank to a sudden heart attack. We were married for 40 years, built a good life in suburban Boston. Frank left me financially secure, with our house paid off, 2 cars, and a healthy savings account. I never told my son Ollie or his wife Amanda about the extent of these assets. Looking back, keeping that information private was one of the wisest decisions I've ever made. If you're watching this right now, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're watching this cautionary family tale. It might just help you avoid the heartache I experienced. My husband Frank and I built a good life together over our 40-year marriage. We weren't wealthy by any means, but we were comfortable in our modest, suburban Boston home. Frank worked as a financial advisor for a regional firm, and his careful approach to money management served us well through the decades. I taught elementary school until retirement, and between our two incomes, we managed to put Ollie through college without student loans and still save for our future. Ollie was our only child, born when we were both in our mid-20s. He was a sweet, thoughtful boy growing up, and we shared a close relationship through his childhood and college years. He would call me several times a week during university, sharing stories about his classes and friends. Frank and I were so proud when he graduated with honors and went on to pursue his MBA. It was during graduate school that Ollie met Amanda. He brought her home for Thanksgiving, and my first impression was positive. She was beautiful, articulate, and seemed to make Ollie happy. Frank, always more perceptive than me, noticed something in her behavior that gave him pause, though he kept his concerns mostly to himself at first. After they married, I began to see subtle changes in Ollie. Our once down-to-earth son became increasingly focused on appearances and status. The modest apartment they initially lived in was quickly traded for a house in an exclusive neighborhood they could barely afford. Christmas gifts became branded items with visible logos, and conversations shifted toward material acquisitions. Amanda never seemed comfortable in our home. She would run her finger along shelves as if checking for dust, make comments about our quaint furniture, and subtly compare our lifestyle unfavorably to her parents' more lavish one. I tried to connect with her by suggesting shopping trips or cooking together, but she always had an excuse. When they did visit, which became increasingly rare, Amanda would spend most of the time on her phone, barely engaging with us. Frank noticed more than I did. One night, after a particularly strained dinner with them, he confided his worries. "Evie, I'm concerned about Ollie. He's changing, and not for the better. Amanda seems to value things more than relationships. I worry about their finances, too. That house, her designer clothes, their vacations. I don't think they're living within their means." As Ollie and Amanda's visits became less frequent, Frank began having serious conversations with me about our finances. "I want to make sure you're protected, no matter what," he told me one evening. He explained his plan to ensure all our assets were secured in my name only. I was reluctant at first, feeling it showed a lack of trust in our son, but Frank was insistent. "It's not about not trusting Ollie," he explained. "It's about protecting him from potential mistakes and protecting you from potential pressure. I've seen too many clients lose their retirement security trying to bail out adult children. Promise me you'll be cautious, Evie. Our money needs to last your lifetime." Though I didn't fully understand his concerns, then I trusted Frank's judgment and agreed to his plan. Little did I know how prophetic his worries would prove to be. The day Frank died started like any ordinary Tuesday. He kissed me goodbye before heading to the gym, as he did 3 mornings a week. An hour later, I received a call from the hospital. Frank had collapsed during his workout, and by the time I arrived, doctors were performing CPR. Despite their efforts, my husband of 40 years was gone taken by a massive heart attack. In shock, I called Ollie immediately. His response was oddly detached. "That's terrible, Mom. We'll try to get there as soon as we can, but we're supposed to leave for Cancun tomorrow. Let me talk to Amanda and see what we can do." They arrived late that evening, Amanda clearly annoyed about the disruption to their travel plans. The funeral was a blur of faces and condolences. Ollie and Amanda stayed for only 2 days, explaining they had rescheduled their vacation and needed to leave. I found myself alone in the house Frank and I had shared for 30 years, the silence deafening. The weeks after Frank's death were the loneliest of my life. Friends brought casseroles and offered companionship, but nights were unbearable. Ollie called occasionally, brief conversations that felt like obligations. I yearned for my son's support, but didn't want to burden him with my grief. A month after the funeral, I met with Robert, Frank's attorney and longtime friend. Frank was very thorough in his planning. "Evelyn," Robert explained, spreading documents across his desk, "your house is fully paid off and solely in your name. Both cars are paid for, entitled to you only. And there's the investment account and savings account, also in your name, only totaling just over $800,000. I was stunned by the extent of Frank's preparations. Robert continued, "Frank was explicit about his concerns. He wanted to ensure you would never face financial pressure from anyone, including family. He asked me to remind you to be cautious about sharing details of your financial situation, even with Ollie." When Robert mentioned Ollie, I finally understood the full extent of Frank's worries. Did Frank think our son would try to take advantage of me? I asked, the idea almost too painful to contemplate. Robert chose his words carefully. Frank observed patterns that concerned him. He loved Ollie deeply, but he was worried about influences in his life that might not have your best interests at heart. He wanted to ensure you would be secure no matter what. Driving home, I wrestled with what to do. Should I disregard Frank's warnings and be completely open with Ollie about the inheritance? Or should I trust my husband's foresight and keep the details private? Surprisingly, Ollie and Amanda showed little interest in Frank's estate. When Ollie finally asked about finances, a few weeks later, his question was casual, almost an afterthought. "So, Mom, did Dad leave things in order? Any insurance or anything?" I gave a vague answer about having enough to get by, and Ollie didn't press for details. Amanda, however, made a comment that revealed their assumptions. "It's too bad Frank didn't plan better for retirement. Our financial advisor says most people his age should have much more set aside." Their barely concealed disappointment at the perceived lack of inheritance should have hurt, but instead, it validated Frank's concerns. I decided then to honor his wishes and keep our financial arrangements private. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I joined a grief support group at the community center, reconnected with former colleagues, and even started volunteering at the local library. Through these activities, I made new friends, particularly Gloria, a widow of 5 years, who became my rock. Meanwhile, I began noticing signs that Ollie and Amanda might be struggling financially. Despite their apparent affluent lifestyle, Ollie mentioned work stress more frequently, and mutual friends commented on Amanda's complaints about temporary cash flow issues. I wondered if their financial situation was as solid as the image they projected. As I approached the 1-year anniversary of Frank's death, I had established a new routine. Tuesday mornings at the library, Wednesday lunches with Gloria, and our widows Group weekend gardening in the small plot that had once been Frank's pride and joy. The raw pain of loss had softened to a manageable ache. Ollie and Amanda's life, from what little I could glimpse, seemed to be moving in the opposite direction of mine. While I was finding peace in simplicity, they were doubling down on appearances of success. They arrived for Frank's memorial service in a brand new luxury SUV that Ollie proudly announced was top of the line. Amanda wore designer clothes and a diamond tennis bracelet she made sure I noticed. "We just got back from Aspen," Amanda announced during dinner at my home after the service. "The skiing was divine, though our chalet wasn't quite as close to the slopes as we would have liked." I nodded politely, while setting down the pot roast I had prepared, one of Ollie's childhood favorites. Amanda eyed the meal with thinly veiled disdain. "Oh, how quaint. My mother always serves beef Wellington for special occasions. But this looks homey." Later, as I served coffee in the living room, Amanda wandered around, examining my furnishings. "You know, Evelyn, if you ever decide to update your decor, I know an amazing designer. This place could really use a refresh, don't you think? So dated." I caught Ollie wincing at his wife's comments, but he said nothing to defend our family home. Instead, he changed the subject to business opportunities he was exploring. "There's this investment group I've been talking with. Really exclusive minimum buy-in is $50,000. Could be huge returns, though." The conversation felt like a fishing expedition, testing whether I might volunteer financial assistance. I simply nodded with interest, but offered no monetary support. Their disappointment was palpable. Over the next few months, I began noticing more signs of financial strain beneath their facade of wealth. Amanda mentioned being between jobs after parting ways with her marketing firm, but continued posting shopping sprees on social media. Ollie called more frequently, often steering conversations toward money matters. "Real estate in our area has gotten so expensive," he commented during one call. "Our property taxes went up again, and the Homeowners Association just added a special assessment for new landscaping. Being a homeowner is just one expense after another, you know." I sympathized, but didn't take the bait. A week later, Ollie called with a more direct approach. "Mom, I hate to ask this, but we're in a bit of a tight spot this month. Amanda's job transition is taking longer than expected, and a few big clients are late paying invoices. Could you help us with the mortgage payment? Just temporarily, of course. We'd pay you back next month." The request wasn't entirely unexpected, but the amount surprised me. When Ollie mentioned they needed $4,000 just to cover the basics, I realized just how expensive their lifestyle must be. I agreed to send $2,000 from my monthly pension income, explaining that was what I could comfortably manage. Ollie's response was telling. "Oh, well, I guess that helps a little. I thought maybe you had some of Dad's life insurance or something you could share. But thanks for what you can do." That evening, I received a text from Amanda. "Thank you for helping, though we were hoping for more substantial support during this temporary setback. Families should be there for each other after all." The pressure continued to build over the following months. What started as a one-time request became regular emergencies that always seemed to coincide with luxury purchases visible on their social media. I provided modest help a few times, always from my monthly income, never touching the savings Frank had left. Each time, their gratitude was overshadowed by obvious disappointment at the amount. I began to understand why Frank had been so concerned about protecting our assets. The requests weren't about need, but about maintaining a lifestyle far beyond their means. And with each interaction, I felt more like a bank than a mother. 18 months after Frank's death, my relationship with Ollie had deteriorated to strained phone calls and uncomfortable visits filled with financial undercurrents. Amanda had become less subtle in her probing. During a Sunday dinner at their house, while Ollie was grilling, she cornered me in the kitchen. "Evelyn, I've been wondering about Frank's estate. Did he have life insurance through his work? Most financial advisors recommend substantial policies, especially for the primary breadwinner." Her directness caught me off guard. "Frank made sure I would be taken care of," I replied carefully. "I have enough for my needs." Amanda wasn't satisfied. "But specifically, was there a policy? Those can be worth hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions. And what about retirement accounts? Did he have a 401k or IRA?" Before I could formulate a response, Ollie returned from the patio, and Amanda smoothly changed the subject. But the intent behind her questions was clear, and I left that evening with a sense of unease. The following week, I ran into Jean, a longtime family friend, whose husband played golf with Frank for years. After catching up, Jean hesitantly brought up Ollie. "I'm worried about your son, Evelyn. Tom heard from their neighbor Bill that Ollie's business is struggling. Apparently, they've missed several homeowners association payments, and there's talk of their cars being leased rather than owned outright." This information was concerning, but not entirely surprising. What Jean said next, however, sent a chill through me. Bill mentioned overhearing an argument where Amanda was shouting about counting on an inheritance that never materialized. "I hate to tell you this, Evelyn, but it sounds like they may be in serious financial trouble." Thanksgiving that year brought matters to a head. I hosted dinner, preparing all of Frank's traditional recipes. Ollie, Amanda, and her parents arrived together, her father immediately asking for the football channel, while her mother scrutinized my home with the same critical eye as her daughter. During dinner, the conversation turned to family memories. I mentioned how Frank had always insisted on hand-carving the turkey, a tradition Ollie had continued today. Amanda's mother chimed in. "Speaking of Frank, Amanda tells us he didn't leave much of an estate. So surprising for a financial advisor. One would think he'd practice what he preached." The table fell silent. Ollie looked uncomfortable, but Amanda jumped in. "It's true. Most of Dad's colleagues have substantial life insurance and investments. It's honestly a bit embarrassing that he left Mom with so little. Makes you wonder if he was really as good at his job as everyone thought." I gripped my napkin under the table, fighting back tears at hearing Frank's memory disparaged. Before I could respond, Amanda continued. "Ollie and I believe family should take care of each other. When my grandmother needed assistance, my parents immediately stepped up. That's what loving families do, right, Mom?" The implication was clear, and suddenly, I couldn't bear it anymore. "Frank was excellent at his job," I said quietly but firmly. "He took care of his family in ways you might not understand." Amanda's father, 3 glasses of wine, and laughed dismissively. "If he was so good, where's the money Ollie tells us? You're just getting by on a teacher's pension. Not much to show for a career in finance." Ollie finally spoke up, but not in the way I hoped. "Mom, what they're trying to say is that there's a family obligation here. Parents are supposed to support their children, especially in tough times. I feel like you're holding back, not being honest about what Dad left. We're family. We shouldn't have secrets about money." The meal ended shortly after, with tension thick in the air. After they left, I sat in Frank's old armchair and cried for the first time in months. Not for my loss, but for the painful truth I could no longer deny my son, and his wife saw me primarily as a potential source of funds. The next day, I called Robert and asked for his help investigating Ollie's financial situation. As Frank's longtime friend, he had connections and resources I didn't. A week later, he called with his findings. It's worse than we thought, Evelyn. Ollie and Amanda have 3 mortgages on their home, all nearly maxed out. Multiple credit cards at their limits. Luxury car leases they can barely afford. And Ollie's business investment, the one he's been so secretive about. It's hemorrhaging money with investors pulling out left and right. The most revealing information came from Gloria, who had a daughter working at the same country club where Amanda's parents were members. Amanda's been telling everyone that she's expecting a large inheritance from Frank's estate any day now. She's even been shopping for vacation properties, telling realtors that her mother-in-law is selling the family home and giving them the proceeds. The pieces finally came together. Ollie and Amanda had been living beyond their means for years, accumulating debt with the expectation that Frank's death would provide a financial windfall to solve all their problems. When that inheritance failed to materialize in the size they expected, they began escalating pressure rather than adjusting their lifestyle. Frank hadn't just been protecting me with his financial planning. He had foreseen exactly this scenario and had taken steps to prevent our life savings from being squandered on luxury cars and vacation homes. On a cold Saturday in January, almost 2 years after Frank's death, Ollie and Amanda showed up unannounced at my door. Their surprise visit immediately put me on edge, especially when I noticed how dressed up they were for a casual drop-by. "Mom, you look wonderful," Ollie said, hugging me with unusual enthusiasm. Amanda, typically standoffish, embraced me as well, her expensive perfume overwhelming. "We brought lunch," Amanda announced, holding up a bag from an upscale deli. "And a bottle of your favorite wine." I didn't have the heart to tell her she had brought Chardonnay when I had always preferred Merlot, something Ollie should have known. Over lunch, they were effusively complimentary about everything from my new haircut to the throw pillows on my couch. Amanda, who had previously criticized my outdated decor, now called it classic and so well maintained. The sudden change in attitude was suspicious, but I played along, curious about their true purpose. After lunch, as I cleared plates, Amanda began what was clearly a rehearsed speech. "Evelyn, we've been thinking about you howling around in this big house all by yourself. It must be so lonely and so much to maintain." Ollie jumped in. "We've been worried, Mom. Winter's coming, and what if you fell on ice clearing the driveway, or had a medical emergency with no one around?" I reminded them that I had neighbors who checked on me daily, and a medical alert system Frank had insisted on years ago. But they persisted. "The thing is," Amanda continued, her voice taking on a sympathetic tone that felt rehearsed, "this house is really too big for just one person. All these rooms to heat stairs, to climb yard work. And in this market, you could sell for a premium." Finally, they reached their point. Ollie leaned forward, taking my hand in what appeared to be genuine concern. "We have a proposition that would solve everything. You should sell this house and move in with us. We have that spare bedroom suite on the main floor. You'd never have to worry about stairs or maintenance again." I asked practical questions about their plan. Where would my furniture go? What about my garden? My friends nearby? Each query was met with dismissive answers. My belongings could be sold or stored. I could plant a small garden in their yard, and I could make new friends in their neighborhood. "And the proceeds from selling the house?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Amanda's eyes lit up momentarily before she composed her expression. "Well, of course, that would be yours to manage. Though, we were thinking maybe we could help you invest it properly. Real estate in our area has excellent returns. We could even look at buying the vacation property next door to us, an investment for all our futures." When I hesitated, Ollie became more direct. "Mom, we need to be honest here. Amanda and I are facing some financial challenges. We made some investments that haven't paid off yet. If you sold this place and helped us clear some debt, we could all live comfortably together." "How much debt are we talking about?" I asked. The ensuing silence told me everything. Finally, Amanda spoke. "We're facing foreclosure," she admitted. "The bank has given us 30 days to catch up payments." "Why didn't you tell me things were so serious?" I asked Ollie, genuinely concerned. His response shocked me. "We've been trying to tell you for months, but you're so stingy with Dad's money. We know he must have left you well off. No financial advisor would leave his wife with nothing. You're just hiding it from us." "Your father left me enough to live comfortably," I acknowledged, "but not to bail out poor financial decisions." Amanda's facade cracked. "Poor decisions. You live in a paid-off house while we're about to lose ours. Frank should have made sure his son was taken care of too. What kind of father leaves everything to his wife and nothing to his child? He left you an education without student loans," I reminded Ollie. "He paid for your wedding. He helped with the down payment on your first apartment. He was incredibly generous while he was alive." "That was then," Ollie countered, his voice rising. "This is now. We need help, and you're sitting on a gold mine. This house, probably insurance money, retirement accounts. Don't pretend you're struggling on a teacher's pension. We know better." I stood firm. "I will not sell my home. I can help you with financial counseling, maybe a reasonable loan with a proper repayment plan, but not by liquidating my security." Amanda's expression turned ugly. "You selfish old woman. You'd rather cling to this outdated house than help your own son. What kind of mother does that?" Ollie, seeing my hurt expression, tried a different approach. "Mom, think about the future. What about grandchildren? Don't you want to be close to them, to be part of their lives?" Amanda and I have been waiting for financial stability before starting a family. The manipulation was so transparent, it actually gave me strength. "Are you suggesting that access to potential grandchildren depends on me giving you money?" I asked quietly. The ensuing silence was damning. Finally, Amanda stood. "Well, I think we have our answer. Come on, Ollie. Your mother has made her choice. She's choosing a house over her family." As they prepared to leave, Ollie delivered the ultimatum. "Think about it, Mom. We need an answer by the end of the week. Either help us or, well, don't expect to be part of our lives moving forward." After they left, I sat in Frank's chair again, but this time without tears. Instead, I felt an odd sense of clarity. Frank had been right all along, and his foresight had protected not just our assets, but me from the terrible position of having to choose between my financial security and my relationship with my son. The days following Ollie and Amanda's ultimatum were some of the most difficult since Frank's death. I fluctuated between hurt anger and a deep sense of loss. My son was essentially offering to sell his relationship with me for a house and cash. How had we come to this? I turned to my support network. Gloria, from my widow's group, listened without judgment as I poured out the whole story. "You're not alone in this," she assured me. "Financial elder abuse is more common than people realize, especially from family members. Frank was wise to protect you." Robert Frank's attorney was more direct. "Don't give in, Evelyn. If you sell your house and give them the money, they'll burn through it in a year or two. Then you'll be financially compromised, possibly living in their home where they control your environment, and they'll still want more." His legal perspective was sobering. "I've seen this scenario play out dozens of times. They're showing classic signs of financial exploitation. The guilt trips, the isolation tactics, the threats about grandchildren. It's all from the same playbook." What truly opened my eyes came from an unexpected source. A cousin I rarely spoke with called after hearing about the situation through family grapevine. Evelyn, I don't know if you're aware, but Ollie and Amanda have been telling family members you're becoming mentally unstable. They've suggested you can't manage your finances, and they need to step in for your own good. This information hit me like a physical blow. My own son was questioning my mental competence to gain control of my assets. The cousin continued. Amanda's been particularly vocal, telling people you're paranoid and hiding money. She's even mentioned consulting an elder law attorney about challenging your financial control. That evening, I made one of the hardest decisions of my life. I would temporarily cut contact with Ollie and Amanda until they could respect my boundaries and autonomy. I couldn't allow emotional manipulation to drive financial decisions that would impact the remainder of my life. I wrote Ollie a letter explaining my decision and Frank's wishes. I detailed the assets Frank had left me, clarifying that while I was comfortable, I was not wealthy enough to solve major financial problems without compromising my own security. I expressed my willingness to help them create a budget, connect with financial counseling, or provide modest assistance that wouldn't deplete my resources. The response came not from Ollie, but from Amanda, in a scathing email that revealed their true intentions. Your selfish decision proves you were never a good mother. We've consulted an attorney about your obvious mental decline and hidden assets. Don't be surprised when we challenge your competence in court. Ollie deserves his father's money, not you. The threats were painful, but ultimately empty. All assets were legally mine with proper documentation, and a will Frank had carefully constructed with Robert's help. Still, the idea of my son taking me to court was heartbreaking. Support came from unexpected places. Several of Frank's former colleagues reached out after hearing rumors about the situation. Frank talked about his concerns regarding Ollie's financial judgment. One shared. He loved his son deeply, but worried about the influence Amanda had over him. Childhood friends of Ollie's also contacted me, concerned about his dramatic personality change and increasing isolation from anyone who knew him before Amanda. He doesn't return calls anymore, his former best friend Mark told me. When I ran into them at a restaurant and mentioned getting together, Amanda answered for him, saying they were too busy with their successful friends. The most revealing information came from Amanda's sister, Bethany, who reached out after hearing about the conflict. I need to warn you about what they're planning, she said during our phone call. This isn't the first time Amanda has done this. She tried the same manipulation with our parents, convincing them to refinance their home, to invest in Ollie's business. When they refused, she cut them off for nearly a year, only reconnecting when she needed something else. Bethany explained that Amanda had a history of living beyond her means, then expecting family to bail her out. She did it with our grandmother, too, convincing her to change her will, then burning through the inheritance in months. I love my sister, but she uses people, and unfortunately, she's taught Ollie to do the same. This confirmation of Frank's concerns helped me accept the painful reality. My husband had foreseen this possibility and had taken steps to protect me from the very people who should have been my greatest support. The assets he left weren't just financial security, but a shield against exploitation from our own child. 6 months passed without contact from Ollie or Amanda. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned they had indeed lost their house to foreclosure and moved to Arizona, where Amanda had family connections. The threatened legal action never materialized, likely because any attorney would have told them their case had no merit. Those months were a period of profound healing for me. With the guidance of a therapist specializing in family estrangement, I worked through my grief, guilt, and anger. The support group at the community center became a sanctuary where I could share my experience without judgment and gain perspective from others who had faced similar situations. I focused on rebuilding my life and finding joy in new friendships and activities. I volunteered more hours at the library, joined a walking group, and even took an art class I had always been interested in, but never made time for while raising a family. My home, the one Amanda had criticized as outdated and too large, became my haven filled with memories of Frank and the life we had shared. An unexpected connection came when Ryan, one of Ollie's childhood friends, moved back to town and reached out. Over coffee, he shared insights about Amanda's controlling behavior that helped me understand what had happened to my son. She isolated him from anyone who knew the real Ollie, Ryan explained. Friends who didn't fit her image of success were gradually pushed away. She monitored his phone calls, criticized his longtime friendships, and gradually reshaped his values to match hers. Ryan also revealed that Ollie and Amanda had been estranged from her family for periods as well, usually following refusals to provide financial assistance. It's her pattern. When someone doesn't give her what she wants, she cuts them off and portrays them as the villain in the story. This information helped me see that Ollie's behavior wasn't entirely his own. While he was responsible for his choices, he had been manipulated by someone skilled at emotional control. This realization helped me move from anger to compassion, though I maintained my boundaries. After much reflection, I decided to use a small portion of my assets to establish an education trust for any future grandchildren. The trust was structured so that funds could only be used for educational expenses paid directly to institutions, ensuring Amanda could never access the money for other purposes. It was my way of leaving a door open for future reconciliation while protecting Frank's legacy. The call that changed everything came on a rainy Tuesday morning, nearly 2.5 years after Frank's death. I almost didn't answer the unknown number, but something prompted me to pick up. It was Ollie, his voice hesitant and unfamiliar after so long. "Mom, it's me. I don't know where to start." He was calling from a hotel in Boston. He had left Amanda and flown across the country without telling her. "The marriage is over," he explained, his voice breaking. "I finally saw what everyone else had been trying to tell me for years. What Dad tried to warn me about in his subtle way." We met at a coffee shop near my home, a neutral location where we both felt comfortable. The man who walked through the door was a shadow of my son, thin and tired looking, with dark circles under his eyes. But as we talked, glimpses of the old Ollie emerged, the thoughtful boy who had called me from college just to share stories about his day. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he said, tears in his eyes. "I let Amanda convince me that you were being selfish, that Dad's money should have been split with us. I believed her when she said your refusal to sell the house was a sign you didn't love me. I was blind, caught up in keeping up appearances and avoiding her anger." Over 3 hours, Ollie revealed the extent of Amanda's manipulation, how she had gradually isolated him from friends and family, how she had convinced him to take out loans and credit cards, always with the promise that his business was about to take off, how she had manufactured emergencies to justify asking me for money, how she had spent evenings researching ways to contest Frank's will and my mental competence. Most shocking was her ultimate plan. She wanted me to convince you to move in with us, so we could eventually claim you needed nursing home care. Once you were in a facility, she thought we could gain control of your finances as your closest relatives. When I finally objected to that plan, she showed her true colors. That's when I knew I had to get out. Hearing this confirmation of what Frank had feared was both vindicating and deeply painful. My husband's foresight had protected me from a devastating outcome. Had I not maintained my independence and financial control, I might now be in a nursing home while Amanda spent my life savings. "I don't expect forgiveness right away," Ollie said as our meeting ended. "I know I've broken your trust in the worst possible way, but I hope someday we can rebuild our relationship. I miss my mom. I miss who I used to be before all this." The road to rebuilding our relationship was long, and not without setbacks. I helped Ollie find an apartment and a job through Frank's old contacts, but I maintained clear financial boundaries. We agreed on a small loan with formal repayment terms, drawn up by Robert, teaching Ollie the financial responsibility Frank had tried to instill. When Amanda filed for divorce, she continued her manipulative tactics, demanding alimony based on the lifestyle she claimed Ollie could afford, with access to family money. With Robert's help, Ollie protected himself legally, offering a fair settlement, but refusing to be exploited further. As Ollie went through financial counseling, he gained insight into how he had been manipulated and how his own materialistic values had made him vulnerable. "Dad was right all along," he admitted during one of our weekly dinners. "Money is just a tool, not a measure of worth. I was chasing all the wrong things." Frank's wisdom had extended far beyond his death, protecting not just our assets, but ultimately our family relationship as well. His careful planning had given me the security to stand firm when pressured, and had prevented our life savings from being squandered. More importantly, it had eventually helped Ollie break free from a toxic relationship and rediscover his authentic self. Today, 3 years after Frank's death, I still live in our family home. Ollie visits regularly, slowly, earning back my trust. The financial boundaries Frank established remain in place, but they now serve as guardrails for healthy relationships rather than barriers between us. I've made peace with Frank's memory, grateful for his foresight and protection, even beyond death. The greatest wealth I've learned isn't measured in bank accounts or real estate, but in wisdom, boundaries, and relationships built on mutual respect rather than financial expectations. If my story has resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to protect yourself from financial pressure from loved ones? What boundaries have you established to maintain healthy family relationships? Please like this video if it provided insight. Subscribe for more stories about navigating complex family dynamics, and share with someone who might benefit from this cautionary tale. Remember, sometimes the kindest thing we can do for those we love is not giving them everything they ask for, but instead offering them the opportunity to develop responsibility and authentic values. Thank you for listening to my story, and may wisdom guide your own family journey.